This is the first episode of my NBA podcast. I'm Justin Genus, and I'm here with Brendan Murphy and Zach Genus. We all three of us go to Stanton College Prep in Jacksonville, and I decided that I wanted to do this podcast because I got all of us talk about how much we hate these the guys on ESPN and Fox Sports. But the fact of the matter is we're still always talking about them. So I figured instead of just complaining about them all the time, it'd be a good idea to just start talking for ourselves and maybe see if we could improve on what they have going as far as NBA analysis and conversations. So let's start with introductions. I'm Justin. My favorite team is the Lakers. And my favorite player of all time is Kobe Bryant. Though that's subject to change after free agency this year.
My name is Brendan Murphy.
How about you, Brendan?
My name is Brendan Murphy. My favorite team is the Magic. I have hobbies like magic tricks. I like to do magic stuff with my hair, and I like to have a lot of fun. That's me.
Who's your favorite player of all time?
Oh, my favorite player of all time is Victor Oladipo for 3 seasons.
I'm Zach Genus, and my favorite team is the Miami Heat. And my favorite player is, without a doubt, Stephen Curry. He's just out of this
That's
world.
your favorite player of all time?
My favorite team is the Miami Heat.
That's your favorite player of all time?
Yep.
I thought it was Dwayne Wade.
Times have changed, man.
All right, I was just double checking. All right, so I wanted to get the first episode out before the draft because that's really the night that begins the off season in the NBA. I mean, you get a lot of rumors and stuff happening before then, but usually trades don't go down until draft night. Last year, you don't usually. In recent years, you've been seeing more and more activity amongst superstars in the NBA during the off season, and last year the draft was probably the biggest thing that happened during the draft was that Jimmy Butler trade to the Timberwolves launched them into playoff contention. So let's start out with that. What do you guys think would you guys have any predictions for huge trades that might happen during the draft?
I actually do think there's going to be a few trades made during the draft. I think picks 1 through 3 are pretty close. But after that, I think there's going to be a lot of teams looking to move up, get the guy they really want. I think the talent pool is kind of equal after you go past Doncic and you look at Mo Bamba, you look at Bagley, even though I think Bagley is the best player in the draft. You look at other guys like Jaren Jackson and the other guy on Duke, I can't remember his name. What's his name?
Wendell Carter Jr.
Wendell Carter, that's right. So Wendell Carter, and you've got a big group of guys, and I think each team has the guy that they want, and I'm looking to see some people that are going to trade up.
Who do you think specifically might trade up?
Well, we know right now that the Cavs are at 10, and I think the Cavs are going to be looking for that player in the future.
They're at 8.
All right, we'll cut that. I'll continue.
No, that's staying. All right, so after the draft, I don't think none of us think any superstars are getting traded during the draft, right?
Maybe Kawhi. I think Kawhi is the only option, though.
Yeah, I'd say there's an off chance Kawhi gets traded, but because
Kawhi
the
doesn't want to be in
Spurs,
San Antonio, so.
but the Spurs have plenty of time to try and talk to him. I don't think that we're gonna have Kawhi traded before he sits down face to face with Popovich.
I still think Kawhi's hurt his image. I think around the league he's shown a lack of effort. I mean, I understand that his uncle's having a lot of influence on him, but I think that he's had so much of a changing character over the last year that I think teams are going to be more hesitant than they would have been.
Well, that might work.
Point. I hadn't even thought about that.
That might work in his favor, all things considered, because Kawhi is because Kawhi wants to control his fate, and the less teams want to offer, the more likely it is that the Lakers will be able to grab him via trade, because they won't assuming they sign two other max players this offseason, they won't have the room to sign him in free agency next year.
So what are we thinking about the Magic? What are they gonna do in this
Oh,
draft?
honestly, I think it's pretty clear cut. I'm pretty sure we're taking Trae Young. They've had a lot of interviews with him. I've been looking at Magic.com, and he's been working out with them a lot. He's been doing a lot of interviews with them, and I really think it's destined. The last couple of years, the Magic have really not taken that guard, that scoring option. We've taken defense and Jonathan Isaac and raw athleticism and Aaron Gordon and raw
What about Alfred
overseas
Payton?
foreigners. Well, we're not there yet. We got raw overseas foreigners like Mario Hezonja who just have bust written all over them. And then we take Alfred Payton, our last point guard, in 2014 with our first round pick. And honestly, he was the kind of playmaking guard defensively that you didn't really need at the time, where we really lacked scoring with the leaving of Dwight Howard. Um, and so I think at this point in time, you see an upside guy in Trae Young that could either be a bust or a superstar. And I really think that you take that chance if you're the GM of the Magic and take Trae Young, even though he's not my favorite player in the draft, and that might be reaching.
Yeah, I think six might be a little high for him, but for the Magic, as far as their needs, their backcourt is pretty weak right now, so that would make a lot of sense.
I think it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what?
So I think one of the biggest question marks for this draft is Luka Doncic, and the fact that he's probably the most highly touted European prospect maybe ever. A lot of people say he's the overseas. They're saying he's the best European EuroLeague player ever, possibly. And at his age, he's got passing and scoring that's just hard to believe, supposedly. But the fact of the matter is he's still coming from Europe, and he's still not all that athletic compared to your average NBA wing. So what do you guys think about his potential, and where do you think he's going to fall in this draft?
Well, right now, you look at the top of the draft at the top two picks, and you see the Suns and the Kings, and these are two franchises that can't afford to get this wrong. The last few years, just like the Magic, they've tanked awfully, not intentionally, just bad, and seen a lot of bad picks. Ben McLemore. De'Aaron Fox doesn't look like it was too bad of a pick, but we'll see how that goes in the coming years. And although we all think Ayton's going number one, I think you have to choose the best player available, which would be Doncic at 2. As the Kings, I think it's the highest reward, lowest risk pick. And although he's probably, in my opinion, going to end up being probably the 5th or 6th best player in the draft, I don't think he's going to bust. He has a lot of good things written on him. He's very young, and although I do believe that the EuroLeague is overrated as the second best league in the world, which I think it's just such a drop-off from the NBA, you can't even really say that. I do believe those stats are pretty impressive, and that he definitely looks like somebody that's going to be working, especially after seeing his biology. I mean, his biography.
Oh.
And like his whole
what?
whole life.
I've been thinking a
Come
lot
again,
about his
Brandon?
biology also, especially his anatomy.
He was in the training league as a young kid and just moved up to the professional league, and in his very first year he won MVP and led them to the title. And I think with that resume, I don't think you can sit up there and pass on him, because if you miss that pick and he's in your arms like that, there's no controversy, as he will go 3 if he doesn't go 2. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You can't pass.
Yeah, I think that Doncic is probably the most NBA ready prospect as well. Even though I too am pretty skeptical when it comes to European players. Usually, I didn't believe in Porzingis. I still think personally that he's overrated. But Doncic, he's got this level of passing vision that's rarely seen in a player his size, 6'8". He's sort of it's interesting. Exactly. He's not the most athletic prospect we've seen. He's not the most athletic prospect we've seen. Definitely not in this draft.
He dunks. Definitely does dunk.
But overall, I don't think I'd be surprised, especially with the success the Kings had picking Bogdanovich this past year. All right, so next question here. Who do you guys think is going to be the best player in the draft?
Personally, I'm gonna go with Marvin Bagley the third, because I remember the day. I still remember the night that the news came out that Bagley was reclassing and moving on up straight to college, straight to Duke, and the the ripple in the basketball world was actually shocking for me. I knew he was good, but I didn't realize just how good this kid was and how big he was, and how much of an all-around powerhouse he was. He's he shot over 60% from the floor and averaged 20 points and 10 rebounds for Duke this season. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but whenever I watched him, I saw some threes, man. This is a big guy. So I just think, as a big man in a guards league, Marvin Bagley could break that mold a little bit, and I think he's going to be a great player.
Well, I wouldn't say I agree with. I don't know if I'd call him my number one, but I do agree that he's really talented. He's shown he's shown a lot of great skills as far as being able to score around the rim. And the thing is, he never even puts the ball in his right hand. If he could ever get more polished and be able to play with his right hand around the basket, I think he'd probably be one of the top finishers in the league. How about you, Brendan?
I have a few. It depends on what you're asking here. In my opinion, the two safest picks in the draft are DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, and you could throw a third one in there and say Mo Bamba. I think Mo Bamba has the lowest ceiling and the highest floor of any player in the top 10, maybe top 20. I think he's going to be a very solid player, but I don't think he's going to get much better for the years to come. He seems to be a lot like a rebounding defensive big man that doesn't do much else. But that's good. I mean, that's good, and that's what the team may need, especially the Mavericks with Dirk leaving and needing another big man. But I think he's definitely a one-dimensional player, even though that's a good one dimension. One player that I don't think a lot of people talk about is Mikal Bridges from Villanova. He actually does all the stuff that you want him to do in a player. He plays good defense. He shoots the three pretty well. He's a great finisher. He's got good size. He can play like 3 positions on the floor and can guard 1 through 4. A lot like LeBron, except LeBron can sometimes guard the 5 even. So I think those are the safe picks. To me, the best player in the draft probably will be Marvin Bagley. I think he is the best and most talented player in the draft. However, if you want to talk about high risk, high reward, I think the 2 best players that could possibly come out of here are Trae Young and Michael Porter Jr., because you don't know yet what you're going to get out of Michael Porter Jr. And if it's anything like the #1 recruit we saw coming out of high school, I think it's going to be really special. Him and Trae Young, I think, could make something really special in the league, or fall flat and become maybe a Malik Monk type player who doesn't play defense and can't really shoot very well.
Let's be fair. Malik Monk is only going into his 2nd year.
Yeah, but you know what? The sort of, we didn't get as much out of Malik Monk as we wanted last year. He shot about 34%, just not high enough for a scoring small shooting guard like that. And the thing about Trae Young is he just doesn't play defense. But his offensive prowess is not to be taken away. He led the NCAA in assists, and he had about 27 points per game, which in D1 college basketball is insane. So that's something to look at.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, yeah, actually, I will have to backtrack on what I said earlier. I do think, personally, Bagley's going to be the best player in his class.
I think it's not even really that close. Yeah.
As far as the thing is, he was so dominant at Duke, but he has so much room to grow still. He's not a great. He's a minus defender right now. He can't really defend the perimeter. He doesn't show great instincts on defense. Imagine having.
But one thing I think.
Yeah.
I think one thing that differentiates Bagley from Ayton when you talk about maybe the top 3 players in this draft is, Ayton has the body, the size to be the most imposing defender in the NBA. I don't think there's any question. And yet he didn't play defense in his time at Arizona. And to me, Bagley didn't play great defense either. When I look at Bagley's post-game and actually offensive scoring, which isn't just pushing people out of the way and dominating, that carries over to the NBA regardless. Not much like a Shaq player who was so big that was able to move to the NBA and keep that. That's not as easy to do when you're only DeAndre Ayton's side.
And again, he still doesn't even put the ball in his right hand. If he
He
could,
does no Bagley.
if he ever,
Bagley does not.
if yeah, if Bagley could ever score with his right hand, I don't know if anybody in the league will be able to stop him. All right, but to close out our draft segment here in our off-season kickoff podcast or episode, what are you guys' top five? Brendan, you can go first.
I think one, not my top five, but what's probably going to happen is going to be Ayton. I think Doncic is two. I think we're going to see Jaren Jackson actually go three. I'm not a big fan, but I think it's going to happen. And then I think Bagley's going to go four. I don't think you can pass on him. And then after that, it's a toss-up. Maybe Porter falls and goes five. But I'm thinking it's Mohamed Bamba.
How about you, Zach?
Just a disclaimer, this isn't my top five players, but it's how I think it's gonna go. I think Ayton first, just because the Suns. Oh, sorry. I think Ayton first. I'm gonna go Doncic second. Fourth or third, I'm gonna go. Third, I'm gonna say Bagley. Third, I'm gonna say Bagley. Fourth, Jaren Jackson Jr. And fifth. Fifth, I'm gonna say Bamba.
All right, and
Yeah, I think Bamba has to go top five.
yeah, for me, it's not going to look that different from these guys because it's pretty clear who the top five players in this class are. But 8 and 1 because the Suns need a big man. Doncic 2. I like Jaren Jackson at 3 to go with John Collins in Atlanta. 4. I've got Bagley coming off the board, and then Bamba at 5. Bamba at 5. Though I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they pick Porter Jr. because they want to pursue either Clint Capella or DeAndre Jordan in free agency.
And I wouldn't be surprised either if the Grizzlies trade down because they've got JaMychal Green, who actually had a great season this year, and they have a big man in Marc Gasol, who's still one of the best in the league. And I think it's possible they trade down and get a shooting guard or a small forward, maybe one of the smaller players in the draft, like Mikal Bridges or Miles Bridges or something like that.
And they're trying to unload Chandler Parsons' contract as well. So maybe a team like the Clippers might be willing to take that on, so that way they'd have more room next year. Actually, the Grizzlies GM the other day said that they expect to win 50 games, and I personally don't think. I think last year was a fluke. They dealt with a lot of injuries and
such a fluke. They had about 60 different starting lineups throughout the year.
Exactly. I don't know. I'm still mad that they fired Fizdale, but
and I
wouldn't be surprised if they returned to the playoffs this year.
I still think whoever picks 4 takes Bagley. I think it's a big drop off, even though I like Bamba, and his rebounding is something to say. Bagley has an upside that Bamba just doesn't have. And I think after 5, it kind of drops off. So whoever picks 4, even if they don't need a big man, will probably pick Bagley.
I agree.
It's best available.
All right, that's gonna conclude the first episode of this podcast. We still haven't come up with a name just yet, but we'll probably have that by next episode, which we planned. We already started recording actually next week. I intended for this first episode to be a free agency and an NBA offseason preview, but that didn't happen due to time constraints. We're gonna work on that, being able to do that free agency preview next week. As I said, this is my first time doing anything like this, but I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I've always wanted to talk about the NBA. I may even want to do it professionally someday, so this is just a good way for me to get my feet wet. There are going to be plenty of other guests, probably from other people from Stanton for the most part, so the name will probably have something to do with that. If you have any criticism or comments, questions, maybe topics you'd like us to discuss, you can post that in the comment section. I do think I will continue to upload these on YouTube. Just because it's nice to it's easier from the PlayStation, which we used to record this episode. Ideally, there won't be so many cuts going forward, but we'll see how that goes. Um, Lastly, I do think I'm gonna upload this Saturday. I think I'm gonna try and upload a bloopers and outtakes episode, just because I think that would be pretty funny, especially since it was our first time recording anything. Um, so that's all. Thanks for listening. If you got this far, I know it's painful for this first episode, but I hope you come back for more. Adios. Oh yeah, last thing. Uh, what would you guys like to see in the background? Obviously, best case scenario, in my opinion, would be to have actual NBA gameplay running in the background, but that would take a whole lot of editing and a whole lot of extra time. I'm willing to put it in and learn if that's what you guys want to see, but for now, we're probably just going to stick to 2K. I may take it out of practice, though. With the free agency episode, I'd like to just switch through practice with the player that we're discussing at the moment. But that would be probably the number one thing I'd like to hear about from you guys in the comment section. Um, Overall, I think this went pretty well. So now, goodbye.